All right, I want to welcome on my next guest. We got a very special guest. We've got Pac-12 legend and former NFL quarterback, Mr. Ryan Leaf. Ryan, how's everything going for you?
It's going well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So my first question I want to ask you is, I saw you've been like on this amazing weight loss journey in recent months. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because it's incredible. How did you do it?
Well, when this quarantine happened, it was so unprecedented for so many people, and recovery is such a foundation for me, and doing the next right thing and the healthy choice, and life kind of spins out of control, right?
Yeah.
I was very busy last year working. I have a 3-year-old boy.
Oh, cool.
You're not eating as well, and maybe your mental health isn't as good as it needs to be, especially in a situation where you're being told to isolate and be away from people rather than to be a part of something. So I just started with a nutritionist, and didn't like the way I looked in a picture. Felt like I looked angry and bloated, and so I started working with a nutritionist on July 3rd.
That's awesome.
And midway through the year, we kind of thought, and we've stuck to it. It's been nice being at home then, because there is a ritual, there's continuity, and every single day I can be at home and eat good food, and I'm not eating out, restaurants aren't open, all of these things. And it just showed my body was like begging for it to have less weight on its joints and everything, because it melted off. And as of right now, we're down 78 pounds.
That's awesome.
So it's the lowest I've been since I was a freshman in college, which is crazy.
What's the one thing you miss more than anything that you haven't been able to eat?
Well, the good thing about it is Sundays I can have a cheat day.
Oh,
so
cool.
I've been able to.
There we go.
Yeah, I've been able to, eat whatever I wanted, but I'm not really that, indulgent anymore. Soda was a big thing for me. Soda and Starburst candy. Those
really
two things
interesting
are completely out of my diet now. And not being able to go to movies. When you go to movies, you have junk food and popcorn, and we used to do that a lot. And the movie theater that we would go to is completely closed, and it's been closed since I think like March 10th for us. So no movies on this end.
No, I was ironic you bring up movies. I was talking to Gary Barnage the other day, and he's a big movie guy. I don't know how we got into it. We were talking about how it's crazy that Disney Plus is charging $30 for Mulan. Like, I'm not paying $30 to watch Mulan on my TV. What are you doing?
Well, if you have a kid, you
different ball game. Different ball game.
If you have a kid, you do. But you think about if we went to the movie in the theaters with the kiddo, it would be 3 tickets. It would be all the popcorn and stuff. And so we were getting off easy, I think, in this deal.
What's the best movie you've seen since the pandemic and the quarantines happened? Borat for me was fantastic.
I have not seen a movie. The 2 movies I've seen is Trolls World Tour and Mulan, right?
Oh, there we go.
Kid. So those are the 2 movies we've watched, and we watch them over and over and over and over again because he wants to.
Yeah. Do you buy it, or do you have to rent it every time? I feel like it's.
We buy it. So
there we go.
Because we know every night before bed he's going to want to watch Trolls. He calls it Trolls Party. He's going to want to watch Justin Timberlake and Anna Kendrick sing songs as little trolls.
That's wild. That's awesome. So I want to ask you a little bit about your college career. How did you end up at Washington State?
Mike Price, head coach. I was recruited by everybody in the country. It came down to a simple phone call. He called me on New Year's Day. I was watching UCLA and Wisconsin play in the Rose Bowl. He asked me what I was doing. I told him I was doing that. He said, I'll make you a deal. You come here, we'll play in that game together. And I just, I bought it, hook, line, and sinker. He seemed so genuine. He sold me on it. I hadn't done research. I didn't know they hadn't been to a Rose Bowl since 1931. So it was a leap of faith. It really was. But he became a second father to me. He taught me how to play quarterback. And we did exactly that. We won a Pac-10 championship and played for the national championship in the Rose Bowl, which was unbelievable.
What's the most underrated Pac-12 town in your opinion?
Now Boulder, I probably would say. I think that's such a fun town. I mean, Pullman, of course, is the best Pac-12 school and Pac-12 town you can imagine. But I'd say Boulder. It's outside of Denver, close enough, but have its own kind of mystique and what a neat feel going to college there. That's where I originally wanted to go when I was in high school, and so to see them in the Pac-12 now, it's fun to watch.
I saw a rumor that the U wanted you as a linebacker.
Linebacker, tight end. They were honest with me, at least on my recruiting trip, and kind of talked to me that that's what their recruiting coordinator and some of their coaches felt, where I could be effective. I think I probably would have been a pretty effective tight end.
Yeah.
But at the time, I wasn't really invested in playing defense. I'd been a quarterback my whole life. So, and I knew Dennis Erickson, if a pro job came up, he was going to take it. And he did. He jumped ship immediately and went to Seattle a few years later. So I made the right choice.
Absolutely. So was there an adjustment period to getting to school? Was it any much of a hurdle, or did you kind of pick up very quickly?
No, definitely. I just, you come from Montana where the talent is not the same. And I just assumed I'd play right away. I ended up on the scout team redshirting. And it ended up being the best thing for me because our defense that year, the Palouse Posse, would go on to be the #1 ranked defense in the country, the entire country that year. And I got to go up against them every day for the entire season. And it just made me a better player. It earned respect with leaders on the team. So when my time did come in my redshirt freshman year, everybody was really, really on board when I got my first start. I never did not start a game the rest of my career. So
that's awesome. Were you in contact with Drew Brees at the time, like how to succeed at Washington State?
Yeah, I mean, I got on campus and the headlines were Baby Bledsoe, so I had a lot of expectation to live up to. And that guy was just killing it in the NFL. And I had a poster on my wall of, 10 reasons why Drew Bledsoe will kick your butt, and had all these him throwing the ball around, him lifting weights and stuff like that. And then of course he kept a house there. He kept a house there.
I don't know that.
I hosted his younger brother on a recruiting trip there when Adam came, and we've stayed in touch for years and years and years, especially when I got to the NFL. Washington State quarterbacks are a pretty tight fraternity, that's for sure.
So speaking of Washington State quarterbacks, Minshew comes on the scene out of nowhere last year. Did you expect that, or did you kind of see that coming?
Say that again?
With Gardner Minshew?
No one saw that coming. I mean, are you kidding me? One of the best talent evaluators in the country, Nick Saban, said, "Come here so you can coach. Be a grad assistant for me if you come here and be a backup quarterback." And luckily, Mike Leach said, "Hey, come here, lead the nation in passing. Have one more hurrah. I mean, if you're going to coach, you're going to coach, but come here and lead the nation in passing and be a folk hero." And that's exactly what he was. Most wins ever in Washington State history in a season. Wow. And then he goes off to Jacksonville and the myth continues, right? The myth and legend continues. He 6th-round draft pick, starts immediately when Nick Foles gets hurt, and is now their starting quarterback. Unfortunately, he's injured at the time, but I mean, I haven't seen anything from him from the moment that he stepped on campus in Pullman that he isn't a guy that can lead and get the job done.
Do you think it'd be a mistake for Jacksonville to take a quarterback in the next draft and kind of let him go?
I don't think it's ever a mistake to take a quarterback. If you feel like you have a guy, you can't have enough. If you could have 30 quarterbacks on your team, that's what you need to do. You really do. You can never have enough quarterbacks because injuries happen like that. And if people's pride and ego are too harmed by not being the guy because somebody's nipping at your heels, then that's not the guy you want there anyway.
So do you think what Arizona, the Cardinals have done in the past couple of years is really setting the blueprint for what NFL teams are going to start doing in the future? Going from Rosen
well, I think that coaching period has changed. That these coaches that are young are more open-minded. They're not stuck in their ways where it has to be their way, and these players have to mold to us. But rather, you get a guy that is an unbelievable athlete, once in a generation athlete like Kyler Murray. Well, let's get the coach that runs the same offense this kid's been running since he was 2 years old, and we've seen the success from it. So I think pliability. Zach Taylor is putting around his offense what Joe Burrow does best. When LaFleur got to Green Bay, it's about what Aaron Rodgers does best. LaFleur can come in there and go, okay, now we're going to do what the Rams did all the time with Jared Goff, because Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers are extremely different quarterbacks. So that's been really important to see, as the coaches being more pliable and willing to bend and compromise to get wins, which is ultimately what keeps them in a job and it gives them a chance to go to a Super Bowl.
The one Pac-12 guy I keep going to bat for that a lot of people are kind of down on. I think people are giving up too early on Sam Darnold. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, definitely. It's not his fault.
No.
that he's been hurt and he's been
Yeah.
bad and that team's been bad. It's the coaching.
Yep.
It's systematic there. So if I'm him, I'm begging for an opportunity to get out. So hopefully he does, and hopefully he ends up in a place like maybe San Francisco.
Yeah.
Who knows how this all plays out? But it's just not been the right fit for him, and I don't think it has anything to do with him. That's for sure.
What are the kind of things that you don't see on a stat sheet that you've seen from him that just shows you he's going to be a successful quarterback?
His arm strength, his leadership qualities, his ability to, read defenses. I think that's huge part. He's not been a huge turnover guy. It means he's not too flustered by what's going on. He sees what's going on. He just hasn't had the talent around him. And unfortunately, when you get drafted high, sometimes you are not with a team that's very talented. Now, there are different guys that exist that can change the environment, Peyton Manning being one of them.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest worry I have for Joe Burrow. He's just stuck in Cincinnati for his career, a la Carson Palmer.
Yep.
And, we never know anything other than he's just a great quarterback. He just played for a terrible team for years.
Do you think that same issue is going to come up if Trevor Lawrence succumbs, Darnold in with the Jets, and we're just going to see him on the move in 4 years? Or what do you think he's the kind of guy?
Well, hopefully his agent and him will have a real frank conversation and say, you figure out a way where I don't go to New York. That's a deal breaker. We'll pull John Elway if we have to, but, put out false information, do something to, dilute the waters that make me the number one pick if it is the New York Jets, or let them know for sure that I am not going to play for them.
Yeah. And then the one Pac-12 guy this year I've been keeping my eye on is the tackle over at Oregon, Sewell. What's your evaluation on him?
Well, he opted out. So, he's getting ready for the NFL draft. He would have been the first offensive lineman taken a year ago, but he was only a sophomore, so he couldn't. So, if it weren't for quarterbacks in the draft next April, this would be the first guy off the board.
Yeah.
His intangibles, his hands, his feet, his size, his intelligence, all of it off the charts in terms of offensive line play. And I expect him to be the first probably non-quarterback off the board when the draft takes place in April.
Because I saw Daniel Jeremiah said he reminds him a lot of Taylor Lewan on the Titans. So, yeah. So I want to ask you, so getting into your college career, when did you feel like, all right, like you sort of hit your groove? When did you feel like, all right, like I'm not giving this job up?
I knew as soon as I started my first game, it was mine, and no one was ever taking it. My first start was at Washington in the Apple Cup, and we were 3-17, and they were a 10 or 9-2 team, and we just, we didn't care. It was our JV team pretty much playing in that game, and it was the guys that were going to play for the next 3 years together. And, we went off, we lost on the last second field goal, 33-30. I showed my toughness to my teammates. I didn't turn it over, threw it all over the place. And that was it. And we knew the next year we were going to be ready, but we weren't ready to win it all yet. The year going into my junior year, that's the year that we all kind of came together. And even though no one believed in us, we did something that hadn't been done in 67 years. And that was really special.
I saw your junior year. So you threw for a then record 33 touchdowns, which was then the record for Pac-12. What did that mean to you? Like, that's awesome. That's insane.
Well, yeah, records were meant to be broken.
Yeah.
That's just what they're there for. They're goals you achieve for. And if I were to get to that place or that plateau, that means we had to have been doing really well, scoring lots of points. And, sure enough, we were. We got. What's pretty cool is that I have the highest single season at Washington State ever that isn't a Mike Leach quarterback.
That's awesome.
That's where I'm happy about, because I know, and even Mike Leach quarterbacks that played in Mike Leach system, I'm still ahead of. So that tells me a lot of what we were doing offensively and what kind of season we had. And I think I'm like 7th or 8th on the list now, because the likes of Luke Falk and Gardner Minshew and Connor Holiday threw for like 5,000 yards and stuff like that.
No, it's wild to see like how the game has changed now, because I think it really came to light. What was it, a couple days ago when they showed that Flacco passed Montana in all-time passing yards records? I'm like, oh, a little bit of a different situation going on now.
Yeah, defenses are different. You throw the ball a lot more. Troy Aikman has 3 Super Bowls, and I think he's 50th or close to 100th on the list of passing yards, and he's a Hall of Famer. So
I was looking at his Football Reference page yesterday. I don't think he had more than 24 touchdowns in one season, any season of his career.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yep, it's wild. So fast forward to Heisman Trophy. You get, what was your feeling like? You're going into this, obviously this big situation. What was your mindset going in with all these great players around you? What were you thinking?
I felt like I belonged, but I knew it was an opportunity to showcase my head coach and my teammates. And that was important because somebody from Washington State had never and still has never gone to the Heisman Trophy ceremony as a finalist. So to have that kind of primetime platform to discuss what a great coach Mike Price was, what a wonderful institution and university Washington State is, and then my teammates, in particular my offensive line and the skill position players that I got to play with. That's what was pretty cool. I knew I wasn't going to win it. I never had any pipe dream thoughts that, oh, what if my name's called? I wasn't going to win it. So I had just the absolute most fun time with it, with my family, with my coach. And then when I got back with my teammates.
Were you surprised Woodson won it over Peyton?
Yeah, very surprised. If anybody should have won it that year, it was Randy Moss. He was the best.
Okay.
Yeah, he finished 4th, and he was the best player out of all of us. Only defensive player ever to win it, Charles Woodson. Now, he was a great player, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't the Heisman Trophy winner.
No.
That either should have went to Randy for sure, Peyton then, and then probably Charles, and then myself.
Was Randy at the ceremony? Was he even?
Yes.
Was it, okay, that was good. Yeah, that's interesting. So fast forward a little bit further. What made you decide to forego your senior season and enter the draft rather than staying for your senior year?
Well, I was going to either be the first or second pick in the NFL draft, so I couldn't get any higher. We had just won a championship that the school hadn't done since 1931. Played in the granddaddy of them all for the national championship. We were losing 26 seniors. It was going to be difficult to duplicate. And I liked the idea that it was even more on the resume that I left a year early to go play pro ball. I mean, not only am I the only Montanan ever drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, but now I'm going to go a year early and show everybody. So there was ego involved and a lot of things that I had checked off the box that I didn't need anymore.
That's awesome. And so going into what was your draft process like? Was it kind of, when did you kind of know who was looking at you? When did you kind of know, all right, I'm going to be one of the top 2 picks?
Oh, I knew I was gonna be one of the top 2 picks before my junior season even started. So that wasn't even, and for me, it was pick 1A and pick 1B. It just mattered where I went. And it came down to Indianapolis or San Diego, and San Diego seemed like such a better fit, right? The beach, the West Coast, all of it seemed like it fit me more. And luckily, that's the way it went. Unfortunately, I wasn't prepared for what was about to take place and what was about to happen. And it takes a special individual to be an NFL quarterback and be a successful NFL quarterback.
Do you think an unnecessarily amount of pressure is put on top picks in the NFL?
Of course, but you don't have to do it.
No,
you don't have to do that. You can go home. You can go sell insurance for a living, right? You don't have to do this. So whatever pressure or stress comes with it, unwarranted or not, you've chosen this path. So I never want to hear anybody complain about, oh, it's just so tough being a multi-million-dollar quarterback who plays NFL football. Ever.
That's awesome. And then as you were getting closer, were you still talking to Drew about, all right, I need to make this transition? What do you suggest I do? Or was at that point,
unfortunately, that's one of the maturing things I didn't do. I didn't utilize mentors. Lee Steinberg was my agent, had the likes of Drew Bledsoe, Steve Young, Warren Moon, ton of great quarterbacks, Troy Aikman, that I could have utilized. And I didn't. I thought I knew it all. I was, Superman. And, kryptonite hits you pretty hard when you're Superman, and that's exactly what happened to me.
So you just recently got back in with Believe. Why did you want to do a podcast this year, especially with the wild year with college football going on like it is?
Well, I'm part owner of Believe, so
I know that.
So I got in on the ground floor with Braun. He came to me. We were looking at different ways to influence podcasting in your local area, and he had a great idea. And he said, "Hey, you want to try to be a part of this, and you can have 5% of the company." And I was like, this is like, I'm sure this was like the conversation that Zuckerberg had with a couple of his guys in the dorm room going, you want 5%? And some guy says, no, and walks away. And the other guy goes like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then, 5 years later, it's worth $100 million or something. So I was, Braun's a smart guy. I have faith in him. And so I just thought I'd do a ton of work on Sirius XM, doing the Pac-12 show. I'm went to work for ESPN, and they come to me for Pac-12 stuff all the time.
Oh, cool.
Why not do a Pac-12 podcast? And I found a young man who just had graduated from the University of Oregon, Jonathan Rifkin, just out of college, wants to be in as a broadcaster, as a play-by-play guy. It's a great opportunity for him to get his feet wet, learn, and get some exposure with it, because you put my name on something like that, and people will tend to listen, and it's a great opportunity for him to get some interviewing skills and things like that. And it's helped me a ton, because we do it twice a week during the season.
Oh, cool.
And to cover preview the games coming up and recap the games that were played the weekend before. And since the Pac-12 decided to come back, of course, we chose to do the show again. But the podcast network has been amazing for so many people. We went from, I was one of the first shows, to now where I think we're up near 300 shows on the network. And it continues to grow, and it just gives people an outlet and a platform to talk about what they want to talk about. And just like yourself, you get the opportunity to do what you want to do, and that's great. So that's what I got into it. Luckily for Braun, he's got the smarts in this relationship, and I'll follow him through it.
Oh, cool. So I just got two last questions for you. So I know you're involved with the NFL with the Legends program. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's the Legends community is simply any player who ever signed a contract is a legend, because there is 27,000 players ever in the 100-year history. That's it. That wouldn't fill up a quarter of an NFL stadium. No. So you are a legend. If you played in the NFL, you are a legend. And I love the name of the company, the organization. And what we get to do is essentially have peer-to-peer contact when people will transition from college to the pros, and then from the pros to civilian life.
Oh, cool.
Because it's super difficult. You are a legend. You are a rare breed. And if you're not prepared to deal with it in a positive and healthy way, it can be really rocky. And mine was. So I'm kind of the perfect example for these guys on what not to do, what help you can get, how you can transition, and how it can be made better. And I'm really, really grateful for that opportunity.
That's awesome. And then, so my last question about you is, so with the age of COVID and college football, we keep seeing all these games getting postponed. Do you, if you were playing now, would you have any hesitation going, like, so let's say your junior season, you're going to be a top pick, and you're seeing this pandemic going out there. Would you have any hesitation about playing? And then do you think college football is going to finish up all right this year?
The 21-year-old version of me, like I told you before, thought he was Superman. So some worldwide pandemic wasn't going to mess with me. I would be clamoring to play, just like all the players are. The problem is you need an adult in the room, because they don't understand. The fact that we're playing college football during a worldwide pandemic right now is absolutely the most asinine thing I could think of. It puts in perspective of what a house of cards college football sits upon. It's like the 2008 housing market, just bad mortgage after bad mortgage after bad mortgage. If you don't play an entire season, your whole thing goes bust. You know what kind of debt these programs are in?
Oh, yeah.
Zero surplus.
Yep.
They had to play. And they're using unpaid labor, who they call student athletes, as the wheel. And the players are doing it willfully because they want to play, because they think they're unbreakable. And we don't know enough about this disease and this virus and what long-term effects it is. So I think it's absolute mistake. But if they're going to do it, I want the safety protocols in place. And I think the Pac-12 has been the best about it. That's why I think you've seen so many cases and so many cancellations, because they have protocols in place that, like, if you get sick, we're not going to try to spread it even more. We're going to shut things down and make it safe. So I will, I feel guilty sometimes on Saturdays sitting down and watching games, but it is what it is. I don't understand why we're putting people's health and safety at risk simply to play football when the season doesn't count in terms of eligibility or anything for these players. They can come back next year and it's like the season never existed.
No, I think Ivy got it right. Do you think college basketball is going to happen?
Of course it is, because it's a money-making machine. So yeah, this is all about money. So yeah, it's gonna. The problem is college basketball, one guy gets it. One guy, the whole team's done. I mean, that's contact tracing as close as you can get inside a facility with 10 to 12 players on your team. That your whole team's done if somebody gets it. And these college kids, after they all of a sudden become big man on campus after a big game, they're not staying at home and quarantining.
No.
They're gonna go out and party and be who 18 to 22-year-olds are. And you can't fault them for it. The ignorance is just what it is.
Yeah, no, it's unbelievable. And there's one last question. What is your bold prediction for the rest of the NFL season?
Well, I don't know if anybody can beat Kansas City. Pittsburgh hasn't shown me anything other than they can find ways to eke out games. And you keep winning, that's telling. So I wouldn't be surprised if in the AFC Championship we see Pittsburgh and Kansas City. I just think it's going to be really difficult to beat Patrick Mahomes and that team. On the NFC side, I mean, we have no idea. We have zero idea. I thought I did a couple of weeks ago. And now is it Green Bay? Oh, no, you get thumped at Tampa. Yep. Okay, it's Tampa. Oh, no, you get thumped at home against New Orleans.
Yeah.
It's the Seahawks. Now they can't beat Arizona. They get beat on the road. Maybe it's Miami all of a sudden. From the AFC, we don't know what it's going to be. So NFC wise, I suspect that Green Bay is going to have a say in it. I suspect Tampa Bay and New Orleans are going to have a say in Seattle, and don't forget the LA Rams. And so you could just keep going and going, but I don't think anybody, NFC, AFC, anybody beats the Kansas City Chiefs.
Interesting. It's one. Do you think any of these teams that are like Minnesota that struggled out of the gate early? I think they won 3 in a row. It's just they're just kind of putting numbers up on the stat sheet. They don't have a shot.
If they lose some games, if some games get canceled and it goes to 16 teams,
okay.
And for the playoffs, you get a team that maybe finished 7-9, gets in 6-10 and gets in, but won its last 6 games. It's about who gets hot last.
Yeah.
And Minnesota's is playing as good as anybody right now. So, I mean, if I'm anybody at the top tier of the NFC, I don't want to see Minnesota at all the rest of the season. And I definitely don't want to see them in the playoffs where things get cold, rainy, physical, and they got the best running back in the league in Dalvin Cook.
Do you think they're the Vikings this year or last year's Titans?
Well, that's a stretch.
Okay.
But that's the recipe. Last year's Titans didn't do anything. They lost in the AFC Championship and didn't go to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, Jacksonville Jaguars played in the AFC Championship a few years back, and I mean, it's like, okay, great, you got there. The Jets went there 2 times with Mark Sanchez. Okay, but I mean, you got to win. You got to win. You got to win a league championship, and you got to play for the Super Bowl, and that's the bottom line. And so, I know that no one wants to see Minnesota if it gets to that time. That's for sure.
Oh, cool. And then, so how can people find you on social media, keep up with you, and also find your podcast and listen and tag along?
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Ryan D. Leaf. At my website, theryandleaf.com.
Cool.
And I'm on Sirius XM channel 84 ESPNU and Sirius XM channel 373 Pac-12 Network channel, as well as doing some work with ESPN in non-COVID years. So it's been exciting to be back at work, and I enjoy talking about sports, football in particular, and I look forward to an exciting finish. Hopefully we'll be able to get there. Be safe.